Sydney News: heavy fog detainments, breakouts and prompt road rainfall alert for Sydney's west. Fog affects Sydney Airport and roads. There are massive ranges through security at Sydney Airport this morning, with trippers staying in lines that stretch outside the terminal. Sydney Airport said heavy fog had affected breakouts this morning, and one security lane in the domestic outstation was temporarily not operating due to a specialized issue. Sydney Airport apologized to trippers for the ranges and said it was working with airlines to resolve the problem. Advertisement on Twitter: Qantas verified that a number of breakouts had been delayed, and asked trippers to check the company's app for updates. Stuck in a long line, Rubberneck Anthony Broes van Gronu said he was hoping he'd make his flight to Hobart in an hour. "It was enough egregious when we pulled up in the hack. It was going to be a big delay in line. It's clearly not ideal," he said. A road rainfall alert has been issued for Sydney's western cities due to the fog. The Bureau of Meteorology is advising that roads are dangerous because of reduced visibility. Drivers are being advised to take extreme care. Some F3 Parramatta River ferries may also be delayed. Progressed care outbreak disquisition. A probe due to start moment will examine the deaths of 19 aged care residers after COVID-19 spread at Sydney's Newmarch House. The families of the people who failed between April and June 2020 have raised enterprises about the care they entered. They've blamed infection control, and say they were misinformed about a decision not to transfer sick residers to the sanitarium. Residers were confined to their apartments and no callers were allowed in during the outbreak. The probe, before Deputy State Coroner Derek Lee, is anticipated to run for 3 weeks. Barilaro inquiry: detention over secret documents. NSW Parliament could be recalled for a critical sitting this week, over the government's failure to produce documents regarding John Barilaro's appointment to a Pearl, New York trade job. An administrative commission is probing how the former deputy premier got the job, which he has since withdrawn from. Acting opposition leader in the upper house John Graham has written to the Legislative Council president, asking for the House to be recalled on Friday. Shadow Treasurer Daniel Mookie said the government had failed to hand over documents, including Mr. Barilaro's job operation and CV. The opposition has reserved its right to withdraw the request if the government complies with the order before Friday. Premier Dominic Perrottet's history conceded detainments but claimed further documents will be handed over. Incredibly disappointing rainfall for Splendour. The member for Baina says it's incredibly disappointing that this time's Splendour in the Grass Jubilee has been agonized by problems. Severe rain and wind on Friday redounded in organizers cancelling the main acts for day one of the events. Patrons have also told of huge detainments to Pierce post-event transport in the early hours of the morning. MP Tamara Smith, whose electorate covers the North Byron Parklands Point, said the state government demanded to do better to support carnivals. "It's really incredibly disappointing for patrons and for the Jubilee organizers. Nothing wants that outgrowth, everyone wants an awful experience," Ms. Smith said. Alert to check fire admonitions. Fire and Deliverance NSW is prompting people to check their bank admonitions after 3 people, including a child, were killed in a house fire in Sydney's southwest. The state's death risk from house fires this time stands at 13, a pronounced increase over last time. Authorities believe the domestic home at Hinchinbrook, where the fatal fire took hold history, didn't have working bank admonitions. Supervisor Luke Unsworth from Fire and Rescue New South Wales said bank admonitions are obligatory on every position where people sleep. Still, we're still apprehensive there are some parcels without a working bank alarm. However, Mr. If that's the case, it may just need a new battery or it may need to be replaced, so we're really asking people to make sure you've got a working bank alarm," Unsworth said. Special Disaster Unit request. The Police Association of NSW is calling on the state government to set up a special police exigency response unit for disasters. The offer has been put forward in the association's submission to the independent inquiry into flooding in the Northern Rivers and the Hawkesbury. The inquiry is due to hand its report to the state government within the week. Association Chairman Kevin Morton said the special unit could help coordinate exigency responses. Police are typically called in when these situations tend to a helical of control, and we're losing precious time and days in those situations where the community is at the poor end of that, Mr. Morton said. The number of overseas breakouts has doubled since March, but numerous feel anxious to fly again. Then is how to prepare for a transnational flight. Your Musketeers' Instagram biographies are swamped with prints of evenings in Greece. Facebook feeds are packed with your High Academy familiarity with enjoying wine and gelato in Italy. The number of passages being taken in and out of Australia has nearly doubled since March. The Australian Bureau of Statistics (ABS) reported that 860 people flew overseas in May alone. It's not just you, it's summertime in Europe. This means nearly everyone you know is on vacation. But for numerous, traveling during the epidemic brings up passions of dread and anxiety. Still, then is how to check those trip jitters for when you decide to take off, if you are feeling unrehearsed for the admin that comes with planning an overseas trip. Do I need a trip or medical insurance? Trip insurance is just as important as your passport, according to Choice's plutocrat and trip director, Jody Bird. Flight detainments, cancellations, and lost luggage are only a bit of the nuisance that trippers face. Trip insurance can cover these and further. Still, also medical insurance is an absolute must-have, if not travel insurance. Raspberry said. While some people may be suitable to absorb flight cancellations or lost luggage, numerous will not be prepared for the cost of a medical exigency while they're overseas. Suppose about what might be if you catch COVID-19 during your vacation. Depending on where you are, you may have been insulated or go to the sanitarium for treatment, affecting your accommodation, conveyance, and the people you are traveling with. Despite working in the trip assiduity for over 20 times, the head of terminal operations at Brisbane Airport Corporation Stacey Pollard says she still gets the comprehensive trip and medical insurance. I would not leave Australia without it, she said. Mr. Bird and Ms. Pollard both recommend using the Australian government's Smart Traveller website to explore the conditions of the country you are visiting to more understand the type of trip insurance you are going to need. What time should I arrive before my transnational flight? When to show up at the field, everyone's favorite game to play. Your family says 3 hours before your flight. Your friend says 2. And your pater? He says 4. A lot of people I see coming into the transnational field are arriving 5 or 6 hours before their flight opens, and there is just no bone there to help them, Miss Pollard said. Mr. Bird said it all comes down to keeping up to date with the rearmost information from the airline that you are flying with. They will frequently post updates to breakouts on their website or social media runners, he said. As a general rule, you should leave at least 4 hours before your flight. And yes, there's a similar thing as getting to the field too early. Bird said this not only leaves you having to sit and stay around for hours, but it can also beget issues with overcrowding, which is not a commodity you want to expose yourself to. What is the deal with flight cancellations? Should I be bothered? Pollard says transnational breakouts are looking fairly stable, but domestic breakouts can be a different story. What we are chancing is that most of the cancellations is due to crew deaths, she said. In COVID times, you did not have this issue happening. However, it was generally due to an engineering concern, if an airplane was cancelled. Pollard says the airline is generally apprehensive of any crew deaths in advance. We are seeing most transnational flight cancellations passing in advance of passengers getting to the field, she said. Again, check in with your airline and check your flight details before you've indeed left the house to make sure you are over to date with changes. Be cautious of Uber cancellations and lift share detainments. Still, make sure you've got a plan B if you are allowed of using a lift share service to take you to the field. Rising energy costs and increased demand for trippers. Return to pandemic habits are leading to further Uber cancellations. So before you open a lift share service app, make sure you've looked at all your options, including airport train/shuttle machines. Most countries have their own direct train and/or machine links between domestic and transnational airfields, for lower than half of what an Uber costs. Ask someone you know to drop you off if you have a friend or family member who does not live too far from you and is kind enough to give you a lift. They could drop you off at the terminal. Upset about losing your luggage? Consider a digital bag label. Thanks to the digital period we live in, effects like electronic bag markers live. There are colorful battery-free, endless bag markers on request. Qantas indeed has its own Q bag markers. These markers work by getting you to check in online through your airline. It also synchronizes your details on your boarding pass with your baggage. How can I be sure I am getting the cheapest breakouts? Pollard has a trip to the United States planned for the end of October. She was getting ready to bespeak her breakouts one night when she decided to hold off until the day after. I woke up the coming morning and those same breakouts were $650 cheaper, she said. There is no magic formula, but there are effects you can do to help you get the stylish deal. Pollard recommends the following. Set up cautions for breakouts from online trip websites, similar to Expedia and Skyscanner. Subscribe up for emails or push announcements when trip websites are having a trade. Examine these websites and their social media accounts diurnal. Explore indispensable styles of trips. Pollard says while direct breakouts are great, you should also consider connecting breakouts. How far in advance you bespeak your flight also has an impact on the price you will pay, Miss Pollard said. For some, 6 months before your flight might be the cheapest option. For others, it might be 3 months. Field appearance tips from the pros. Be patient and understand that the process is slower than normal. Bird said during the first many lockdowns of 2020, there were reports that the airline assiduity and transnational trip would return to their 2019 state in 2024. That is actually looking relatively accurate, he said. Within a time or two, we will start to get back to normal. Encounter up on field security rules. Pollard recalls numerous times she's seen people arrive at the security webbing area having no idea what they are meant to do. The number of people I see getting up to security with their electronics still in their bags, their jackets not taken off or their belts not removed, she said. They end up delaying and holding up a line of people who are also feeling gravel and restless. Does Pollard say when you arrive at the field, you need to ask yourself how can I help this process be as smooth as possible? Remove all electronic outfits from your luggage and place them on a charger. Place liquids, aerosols, and gels into a clear snap-cinch bag for scanning and presenting maquillages independently. Remove your shoes or belt if you suppose there could be an essence bow or sword cap that would set the sensor off. Find your gate and familiarize yourself with your surroundings. Once you are out of security, do not situate yourself at the nearest cafe for the coming many hours, only to make a fiergusto to your boarding gate. Detect your flight gate first, so you can get back to it with ease. Boarding gates generally open 20 to 40 twinkles before the flight departs. So once you've seized a bite to eat or a book to read, arrive at your gate within this time frame.